Bonjour à tout le monde et merci de nous joindre dans la salle de presse de la Commission européenne. Merci également de nous suivre en direct en ligne et sur Europe by Satellite aujourd'hui, mardi, le 28 septembre 2021. Désolée pour le retard avec lequel nous commençons cette réunion de midi. C'est dû au fait qu'on voulait vous laisser le temps de suivre la conférence de presse entre la présidente von der Leyen et le Premier ministre de l'Albanie, M. Edi Rama, qui vient de finir. Voilà, donc pour passer aux annonces que je peux vous faire aujourd'hui, suite à la réunion des chefs des cabinets des commissaires qui a eu lieu hier, je peux maintenant vous confirmer l'agenda pour la réunion du collège qui aura lieu demain. La réunion sera présidée par le vice-président exécutif Franz Timmermans parce que la présidente von der Leyen est en déplacement dans les Balkans occidentaux, comme vous le savez déjà. Le collège discutera donc d'un paquet sur la migration composé d'un rapport sur la migration et l'asile, un plan d'action contre les trafics des migrants et une communication concernant les mesures à l'encontre des employeurs des ressortissants des pays tiers en séjour irrégulier dans l'Union européenne, donc les Employer Sanctions Directive comme elle est appelée en anglais. Le vice-président Margaritis Schinas et la commissaire Johansson viendront en salle de presse à la fin de la réunion du collège pour vous présenter ce paquet. Then, the President continues her trip to the Western Balkans and following her visit to Skopje this afternoon. As you know, she was in Albania this morning. She will be this afternoon in North Macedonia. And following that, the President will be in Pristina tomorrow morning. There she will visit the Chicherimat kindergarten together with Prime Minister Albin Kurti, and she will also meet the President Vjosa Osmani. After that, in the afternoon, President von der Leyen will travel to Podgorica, where she will be meeting President Milo Đukanović and Prime Minister Zdravko Krivokapić. She will visit the Institute of Public Health, which received EU support in the fight against the pandemic. Now I would like to call upon Verlo, who has news for you related to Next Generation EU.
Thank you, Dana. The European Commission has today disbursed 450 million to Austria, 818 million to Croatia, and 915 million to Czechia in pre-financing payments under Next Generation EU's Recovery and Resilience Facility. This is equivalent to 13% of each country's total financial contribution as established in the Council implementing decision. These payments will help kickstart the implementation of the crucial investment and reform measures outlined in each national recovery and resilience plan. Including today's payments, the Commission has so far disbursed 51.5 billion to 16 member states in pre-financing.
Thank you very much, Verle. Et enfin, permettez-moi de vous rappeler qu'une réunion du Conseil en format compétitivité et recherche est en cours. La commissaire Maria Gabriel y participe pour représenter la Commission. Les ministres discuteront de la gouvernance et la mise en œuvre de l'espace européen de la recherche. Et en plus, la commissaire Gabriel informera les ministres sur l'association des pays tiers au programme Horizon Europe. Une conférence de presse est prévue à la fin des travaux vers 14h45. Et comme d'habitude, nous vous invitons donc de garder les questions au sujet couvert par le Conseil pour cette conférence de presse où la commissaire nous représentera. Voilà, cela clôture nos annonces pour aujourd'hui. Je peux maintenant ouvrir la discussion pour vos questions. You were first one there. I'm sorry if I don't recognize you with a mask, so please introduce yourself. Oh, Zoltan, no. Diego.
Yeah, thank you, Dana. It is with great attention that yesterday I followed your comments on Oliver's question, where you explained why it was okay to campaign or to congratulate another politician in a member state. And in this regard, I have troubles understanding how this accords with Margaritis Skina's enthusiastic campaign for Partido Popular in Galicia and his retweeting of campaign tweets by Pablo Casado. Can you explain the logic to me, how this works with, not endorsing any internal politics campaign next to, after someone being nominated? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diego, because this allows me to clarify several points which you brought up in this question. First of all, the question yesterday was about a reaction to elections in a member state which happened the day before and where negotiations or talks take place between political parties which took part in that election. And I clarified that we have no comments to offer on that situation and on the negotiations which were taking place in that particular member state. Now you are bringing, as Oliver did yesterday, another element, which was that for the elections at the local level in Lisbon for a mayor, and about the fact that a member of the college issued a tweet congratulating his the politician who had won those elections. What I had said yesterday is that the Commission, of course, works with partners at various levels, be it at the local or the national level. And indeed, when there is a government which is sworn in a country, it is our custom to and our tradition to indeed welcome and to congratulate our partners. Then you also asked about the activities of a college member, which in your opinion, amounted to campaigning or to taking parts in political activities in a certain part of Spain. What I can say in relation to that is that members of the college are politicians who sometimes are called or can choose in their capacity as politician to take part in such activities. But this doesn't amount to me giving a reaction of the Commission in the name of the Commission in favor of one or the other candidates. Diego, you have a follow-up.
Yeah, I understand your answer, but nevertheless, I mean, here's the Vice President of the Commission retweeting a national party leader who says that, his party, the Partido Popular, will go back to the seat of the government and save Spain. Is that the Commission position that, Spain needs to be saved by Partido Popular?
Thank you very much for your new attempt, Diego. I think I just answered that question, that members of the college can, in their capacity as politicians, express views on political activities or in the framework of political activities in our member state, and do not associate that with any official position taken by the Commission in relation to national, regional, local elections. Zoltan, you were second. Good to see many people in the press room today.
Indeed. Do you hear me? Yes. My question is on the long-term gas contract signed by Hungary and the Gazprom yesterday. My question is for Tim, because it entails some technical details as well. First of all, if I am not mistaken, according to the gas security rules, the European Union, the member states, in this case, if they have a long contract, they have to notify or pre-notify the Commission this kind of contract, and the Commission have to look into this. Why it was not the case with Hungary, or what is the threshold, maybe of consumption or something, in order that the member state should take into account this rule? The second question is, if I'm not mistaken, there is, in the other case, there is a 3 months period when the national authority have to announce to the Commission notify the Commission the contract. What happens if at the end of the scrutinizing of the Commission scrutiny, the Commission decides that this contract is not in line or not compatible with EU rules? What the Commission can say? Changing the rules, the contract, or what? And the third question is, to my knowledge, Commissioner Simpson is meeting today the Ukrainian energy minister. Can you, Tim, debrief us after the meeting has taken place? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Zoltan. Go ahead, Tim.
So yeah, Zoltan, I will tell you what I can in terms of the regulation. If anything's unclear, I mean, we can also follow up and look at the details. But just so yeah, gas undertakings are free to enter into bilateral gas agreements, and under the security of supply regulation, all new and modified long-term gas contracts, which have a yearly volume exceeding 28% of annual consumption in the most impacted member state, should be notified to the national competent authority, first of all. That authority will then prepare a security of supply assessment of the notified contract. And this contract, according to the information that we have, does represent that kind of volume. And as such, it should be notified to the Hungarian competent authority. That authority is then obliged to provide the Commission with this assessment of the contract within 3 months, as you say. The Commission can also request to receive the contract if it has a duly justified concern that the contract might jeopardize security of supply of a member state or a region or the Union as a whole. So that's the framework which we're operating in. As you know, the contract was signed yesterday, so we're not yet at the end of those 3 months period. I have asked my colleagues to check already, actually this morning, what would be the consequences, so I will let you know on that. And then in terms of the meeting of Commissioner Simpson, I believe that that's ongoing around now, and I can provide you a readout of that meeting this afternoon.
Thank you very much. Follow up, Zoltan?
Just a short one. Do I understand where, in case there are some problems, if the contract is not compatible, it is in general, not in the Hungarian case, with the EU rules, the Commission can ask changes, the member state to change the contracts, the terms of the contracts, if they are not compatible with the EU rules. Is it okay? Yeah?
Yeah, no, I understand the question. I'm verifying that information with our experts at the moment, so I will let you know. Yeah.
Thank you very much. At this point, are there any additional questions on this matter? The gas contract involving Hungary. Yes, György.
Yes, Tim, thank you for answering in writing to my questions, Tim. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that the Commission has a copy of this contract. Do you have immediate plans to ask the Hungarian authorities to provide you with a copy?
Well, as I said, I mean, the first step in this procedure is that the Hungarian authority makes its own assessment. We do have the option to request the contract if we have concerns that it might jeopardize security of supply. I think at this stage it's too early to say if we would go down that road.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions for Tim on this subject? So please, in the online chat, please only keep your hand up at this stage if you have a question about this subject. So Rainer, I believe, has a question on energy. Go ahead, Rainer. It may not be the same, but still energy. Which is not.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Rainer. Go ahead.
Okay. My question is about the taxonomy. Yesterday there was a vote in Econ and Envy and about the taxonomy, and there were the objections from some deputies were not accepted. So my question is, how will it go on now? Will the Commission propose a new delegated act to introduce nuclear and gas in the taxonomy, or will it only change the taxonomy?
Thank you very much, Rainer. Dan, join me on stage to provide you an answer.
Hi, Rainer. Thanks very much for your question. Of course, with any sort of votes or exchanges with the co-legislators, we follow those events and take note of them. More generally, I would recall what we said both in April this year and also in July, that the Commission will adopt a complementary climate taxonomy delegated act that will cover the activities that are not yet covered in the first delegated act that we came forward with earlier this year. And of course, this delegated act will be in line with the requirements of the taxonomy regulation. The delegated act may also cover energy activities to the extent that they comply with the criteria of the taxonomy regulation, and of course consistent with any specific expert review processes that will be set out for this purpose. Now, in terms of timing, we've always said that we will adopt this complementary act as soon as possible once the specific review processes are over, but at this point I'm afraid it's too early for me to go beyond that right now. I wouldn't be able to give any sort of specific timing beyond that.
Thank you very much. Are there any additional questions on this matter for Dan? I see 2 hands up, but I understand from the chat that they're about something else. So unless somebody else raises their hand because they have a question for Dan, I will free Dan and I will give the floor to Oliver, who waited patiently.
Thank you. On migration, visas and readmission. My question would be, the French government today announced that they would cut the number of visas granted to citizens from Morocco, Algeria and Tunisia by, I think, 50, 50 and 30%, as a retaliation for these governments not properly cooperating in the readmission of Moroccans, Tunisians and Algerians that are not rightfully on French territory. And the statistics are quite stark. There's like only several dozens who were legally obliged to leave France, who were actually, then sent back to their home countries. So my question now is, given also that you're going to propose some asylum, migration, and so forth reforms tomorrow, what's the purpose of one Schengen country actually reducing the number of visa if then anyone could simply apply in another Schengen country and then, of course, legally move around? So put differently, wouldn't it be useful, also given that the visa code was reformed only, I think, 1 or 2 years ago upon the Commission's initiative, to make sure that such policies are conducted together by all Schengen member countries, so they actually have the effect of putting pressure on governments like those of Morocco, Algeria and Tunisia that don't take back migrants that are overstaying their visas and so forth. What is your take there? Do you also have statistics on the total numbers of people who were actually successfully sent back to their countries in the framework of readmission and so forth? And then finally, after the reform of the visa code, you had some time to look at it. You had the European Court of Auditors that actually said this is not really working so far. What should be done, or what is your assessment of the interplay between granting visas and getting governments' cooperation to actually take back their citizens? Sorry, it's a bit of a long question, but it's a complicated issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Oliver. Quite a panoply of angles there, so go ahead, Adalbert.
Thank you very much, Oliver. And indeed, it's probably material for a longer background chat as well, either with myself, my team, or indeed with Dana, who used to work on these very issues in one of her previous jobs. But just to maybe give you a few key elements. First of all, I think you're absolutely right that there is a need to work on these issues together, to look at the issues of visas and readmission together. And of course, it is necessary to manage the issue of short-term visas to the Schengen area, which remain valid throughout the Schengen area together. And this is exactly the state of affairs currently. The EU visa code is something that regulates short stay visas to the EU together. It's a very detailed set of rules. And this visa code also provides for possibilities to link the issue of return and readmission with the visa code. And you will recall that we have, in fact, proposed a first set of measures relating to this possibility a few months back. It's currently under consideration by the Council. It concerns three specific countries. We also are now reporting every year about return and readmission in the context of the visa code, and we published a report on that also quite recently. However, the issue of short-term stay, short-stay visas valid throughout the Schengen area needs to be distinguished from other types of visas, which relate then to the specific competence of a member state to regulate, for example, the volume of admission of people who are not EU citizens for employment purposes. And that is something that the treaty specifies is specifically the competence of the member states and not of the EU as a whole. So what we try to do is we try to create more coherence in the EU's relations with third countries when it comes to both, when it comes to all the relevant issues, including return and readmission, but also visas, labor migration, and other migration-related areas of cooperation through our concept of comprehensive, tailor-made, mutually beneficial partnerships, which are at the core of the approach to partnerships with third countries in the new Pact on Migration and Asylum. But this is a longer-term endeavor that we're working on very intensively. And again, we can talk about this at length outside the press room as well. But just to also reply to your specific question on the statistics on returns and readmissions, they are collected by Eurostat. They're also publicly available, and very happy to point you to these as well. And we are also reporting on this at length while we report on migration developments in particular. And I would invite you also to follow closely the college readout tomorrow and the documents we'll publish tomorrow, which will also address these issues. Sorry for a long answer.
Thank you, Adalbert. There's also a teaser for the college readout taking place tomorrow after the college meeting. Are there any additional questions for Adalbert on broader migration issues or specific ones for that matter? Yes, Anya. Anya, I think yes, it's you.
Thank you, Anna Sławska, Polish Daily Rzeczpospolita. Could you update us on the state of play between Commissioner Johansson and Polish government? Is there anything planned? Thank you very much.
Yes, so Commissioner Johansson will, as it happens, be in Poland on Thursday, and we are now working very intensively on scheduling a meeting with the Polish Minister of the Interior on that occasion.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Adalbert? In the chat, please only keep your hands up. If you have a question for Adalbert on migration, Tanya and Ekrem, I see your hands. It's just we had to take, or I had to give the floor in the order in which the hands were raised also in the press room, because we alternate between taking questions from those physically present and those connected from a distance. So I do understand then, Tanya, that you have a question for Adalbert on migration. Is that the case? If so, please keep your hand up. Otherwise, no, that's not the case. Ekrem, is it on migration for Adalbert? No, it's not the case. So then, I will free Adalbert. Thank you very much, Adalbert. And I will go to Ekrem. Go ahead, Ekrem.
Hand was raised since Tim was on the floor, so about 10 minutes. I think you skipped it. Granted, didn't saw it. Can we go back with Tim on energy? I can't hear you. What happens? Yeah, I can hear you now. Okay.
We hear you well, so go ahead.
Yeah, it's not about the Russian gas. It's about the last month's announcement by the Kosovo Corporation Energy KEK about initiating a tender on rebuilding a coal-fired power plant. I think Tim must be aware about that announcement made by Pristina Corporation. The question is, what's the official position of the Commission on this? Does it fit with what the EU has been saying all around to the region about the fossil fuels, especially in this case to the CO2 produced by coal-fired power plant in Kosovo in general, in the region?
Thank you very much, Ekrem. I wonder if Tim is aware of this announcement and if he can deliver any specific reaction or if we can rather stay with a more general line.
Yeah, you give me too much credit, Ekrem, when you say no doubt I'm aware. Actually, I'm not aware of this specific case. And maybe I will look into that as well with Anna and colleagues looking at the region more closely. In what I can say in general, as you know, in the Green Deal, we're looking to decarbonize our energy system in Europe as quickly as possible. And that's something that we're also promoting with other countries in the neighborhood and around the world. So that's our kind of headline message that we're trying to move away from fossil fuels as part of the green transition, our global climate diplomacy. But as for this specific case, I will need to look into it and we'll come back to you if we have a specific reaction.
Thank you very much. Are there any additional questions for Tim? Ekrem, you have a follow-up question? Or you forgot?
Follow-up. Yes, it's a follow-up. As we are speaking about the decarbonization, all around the EU, including in the region, Western Balkans, the transition period to the 100%, or if you may say that 100% green energy, the region also is working on several projects on gas. And that includes in Kosovo, which is since last year having talked with US MCC and authority or agency and the Greek as well, the Greek government. So where does Kosovo fit in this transition period with the gas? What is the message that the EU or EC has in this case to Kosovo and the region? Are there any ways that the Commission can support and join the effort of the Americans or on gasification of Kosovo as well? As, for example, we have a case in Croatia with LNG port, and the second one in Greece in Alexandroupolis. The next come in Albania, and probably a fourth one in Montenegro. So where does the EU fit in all these new developments in the region on the gas?
Thank you very much. So Ekrem, this is a more complex question, which is somewhere in between Tim and Anna. I will give the floor to Tim to state her position from a broader energy and climate perspective, and if necessary, if Anna has additional elements of information, she will get back to you after the midday briefing to add on, because I know now from chat that there will be additional questions for Tim on other subjects. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, so on the issue of gas specifically, gas will be part of the transition, the energy transition. This is something that we've said repeatedly. You know, for some member states, they will go take the step from coal to gas to renewables in their transition, and gas brings down already carbon emissions. So that's something which is part of the green transition, the kind of step-by-step process broadly. As Dana says, in terms of the specifics of what we're doing in the region, I think it's better if Anna and myself follow up with you bilaterally.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions for Tim? I understand, Tanya, that your question is for Tim, so go ahead. Do we still have time?
Do we still have time? Can I ask the question on enlargement?
Tanya, I had understood from the chat that your question was for Tim, or perhaps I misunderstood you. I know now that Mose has a question for Tim on energy contracts, so go ahead, Mose, and I will get back to Tanya afterwards. Mose is no longer connected, so last call. Yes, Mose is back. Mose, go ahead.
About the start of negotiations with Albania after this press conference, but if you now when you gave me an opportunity, I would like to ask a follow-up question to Tim about the procedures for notification of such natural gas contracts which Hungary signed yesterday with Russia, because if I understood you correctly, Tim, you said that it's first up to the national, let's say, supervision authority in the country to assess that contract. But I understand the contract has already been signed. by the government, hasn't it? Shouldn't it be the other way around? Shouldn't the government first consult its own, let's say, authorities about such a contract before they sign it? And then, of course, it will be up to the Commission also to assess it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think just perhaps to clarify, this is a signature of a contract as we understand it, not between the Hungarian government, but between MVM, so gas undertaking, and Gazprom. So that undertaking now notifies the competent authority in Hungary, and we go through the process as I outlined earlier.
Yep. Thank you very much, Tim. Are there any additional questions for Tim on this matter or on broader energy matters? This doesn't seem to be the case, so this time perhaps it's for real. Thank you very much, Tim. And Tanya, you have the floor.
Yes, thanks. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Je vais poser la question en français, c'est pour toi Dana je pense, c'est à propos de la déclaration de la présidente à Tirana, là, juste il y a 1 heure. Donc on lui a posé une question sur la séparation de la Macédoine du Nord et de l'Albanie dans la procédure d'adoption du cadre des négociations. Et elle a répondu en ne parlant que de l'Albanie. Alors ça a créé pas mal de confusion chez les journalistes albanais et macédoniens. Et je voudrais avoir une clarification. Est-ce qu'il y a un changement de position de la part de la Commission quand il s'agit de garder la Macédoine du Nord et l'Albanie ensemble en décembre pour pour la première conférence intergouvernementale, ou est-ce que la Commission se dirige vers un découplage de l'Albanie et de la Macédoine du Nord, ou est-ce que c'est juste la présidente qui s'est mal exprimée, ou est-ce qu'il y a un changement de politique, quoi? Voilà, merci.
Merci pour ta question, Tania, qui me permet de clarifier qu'il n'y a pas de changement de politique de la Commission européenne ou de position de la Commission européenne concernant la conférence intergouvernementale sur les négociations d'adhésion des 2 pays à l'Union européenne. Tu as bien vu que la présidente a exprimé son attachement à l'adhésion au processus d'adhésion des pays des Balkans à l'Union européenne. Elle a exprimé son souhait et son intention de travailler avec l'ensemble du collège des commissaires afin d'arriver à l'ouverture de la conférence intergouvernementale avant la fin de l'année. Cela reste notre objectif. Merci beaucoup, Tania. Tu as une question de suivi, je pense. Vas-y.
Oui, juste un follow-up. Donc, quand tu dis l'objectif, c'est bien toujours pour les 2 pays, hein?
Dès qu'il n'y a pas de changement de position et qu'un objectif est effectivement d'avoir un début des négociations d'adhésion avec le début de la conférence intergouvernementale avant la fin de l'année. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions à ce sujet? So please only keep your hands up at this stage if on the accession process of the Western Balkans. So yes, I guess that Ekrem has a question about that. Go ahead, Ekrem.
Yes, Dana. In fact, the answer of the president given to the first question of Albanian journalist in Tirana, for me personally was understood that EC is moving toward a position of having the talks launched only with Albania. That's how I understood. Well, if I have misunderstood, perhaps I understand we are not in position to go into much detail. But going back to the Commissioner's Varhelyi interview to Euronews, are we right to suggest that something is going on here in case Bulgaria continues with its veto? And then that might push a clear position on the Commission saying, officially, let's go with Albania because we cannot wait for always and victimize Albania because of its non-guilt.
Much, Ekrem. I think I'll try again, this time in English. Allow me to clarify that the President is pushing for the start of intergovernmental conferences for both Albania and North Macedonia before the end of the year. I hope that clarifies it. Are there any additional questions on enlargement? Mose, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Dana, for giving me the floor again. Yes, in fact, I also happened to listen, not the whole interview or the press conference with the president and also the Albanian prime minister a while ago. And I got the impression from that press conference that it was not at all clear if and when, such a conference will take place, or when accession negotiations will start. Both North Macedonia and Albania have been promised in the past that negotiations will start in the near future, and it didn't happen. And you got the impression from the Prime Minister, who said that we go from summit to summit without any progress. And now 8 years has passed since this process started, and he felt very frustrated. And neither President von der Leyen, let's say, promised or said anything that the start negotiations was around the corner. So what really is the state of play when it comes to these negotiations, especially with Albania? Because as we know, the Commission has since long time already recommended that these negotiations should start as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Moses. So allow me again to go back to clarifying what the President said, what the message is towards the Western Balkan countries that she's visiting this week. It's very clear, as I said, that the President is pushing for the start of intergovernmental conferences to start with both Albania and North Macedonia before the end of this year. So I hope that the message is clear the fourth time around. The President also said that while in Albania, she's very attached to the accession process of the Western Balkan countries. She had very warm words for the Western Balkan countries. If you have followed the press conference, you have surely seen that or heard that. The President also said that Albania has done its job, that we asked a lot, and Albania has delivered, and that it is now important that the EU moves ahead. And the President said that she will do everything possible to overcome the hurdles, which have so far not allowed us to start the intergovernmental process, because those hurdles should not hinder the enlargement process and should not delay further the start of the intergovernmental conference. I can call upon Anna to provide additional details on the process itself, but you know very well that it's not for the Commission alone to launch an intergovernmental conference, although our desire remains clear to work with our partners to ensure that it's launched very rapidly. Anna, on the process.
Thank you so much. So I think it's important to go back to the historic decision that the EU leaders actually took in March 2020, when you know that they actually gave green light to opening accession talks with both Albania and North Macedonia. The Commission's position is very clear. Dana and the President have made it clear as well. Clearly, for us, the two countries have delivered on what was asked of them, and we need to move forward as soon as possible with them. The President has made it very clear that we would like that the first intergovernmental conferences can be convened by the end of the year. Now, you know that the process is that the member states have to agree on the negotiating frameworks in order for the presidency to be able to convene the intergovernmental conference, and therefore that would mark the official start of the accession talks, formally speaking. So that's the process, that's where we are. And from the Commission side, just maybe to point out that we continue to talk to all the relevant sides, and we're working also with the Slovenian presidency in order to be able to, take our objective, our common objective forward, which is to start accession negotiations formally with the two by the end of the year.
Thank you very much. Anna, are there any additional questions for Anna on enlargement-related issues? Yes, Tanya, you have a question. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask her if she sees any movement now that the commissioner visited Bulgaria. Is the Commission seeing any movement on the Bulgarian side so that they could remove the blockage by December? Or if Bulgaria blocks again in December, then would the Commission accept to move forward with just one?
Tanya, thank you very much for the question. I think that I can only repeat what I've just said, that the Commission is talking to both sides. You are very well aware that Commissioner Vahey will be traveling to Skopje tomorrow on Wednesday. He will be meeting Prime Minister Zaev. You know that he visited Sofia last Tuesday. So again, from the Commission side, we continue to talk to all sides, all the relevant sides, and we will continue working for our common objective to be able to move forward.
Thank you very much. Anna, are there any additional questions for Anna on enlargement? Christian, j'ai vu que tu as une question sur Serbie-Kosovo. Si c'est sur l'escalation qui a lieu en ce moment, ce sera plutôt pour Peter. Donc, je préfère prendre d'autres questions pour Anna avant, Siliana, et puis je te donnerai la parole. I think that Ekrem has a question for Anna, so go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can, go ahead.
It's a question for Anna. Anna, I'm sorry, but I will try to make a question the other way around. What if the EU member states agree or reach a consensus to launch the talks next year only with Albania? Will that position be supported by the European Commission?
It is never wise for a spokesperson to answer questions that start with what if. So I do not believe that Anna would say much more to say in addition to what you already said to such a highly hypothetical question.
No, exactly. This is a very hypothetical question, Ekrem. You know very well the process. You know that the Council did not set any specific dates for starting negotiations with any of the two, and our position continues to be very clear that both have delivered and we want to move forward with the two as soon as possible. And this is where we are. Maybe if I could, on your question that you had on the gas and support for Kosovo, maybe just to recall, Ekrem, on top, of course, of what Tim said about, the EU's strong push for the decarbonization of our economies. Just to recall that, of course, the EU's investment and economic plan for the Western Balkans will, of course, be supporting connections when it comes to energy, transport, and other important projects, of course, sustainable projects. And you're probably aware that, of course, this plan is drawn up also in contact with our partner countries, and you know that in the case of Kosovo, the plan also foresees specifically in the area of energy the possibility to support the gas interconnection between North Macedonia and Kosovo. So that is just what I wanted to mention.
Thank you very much for completing on that side as well, Anna. Are there any additional questions for Anna on enlargement? Western Balkan-related issues. Voilà, Christian, vas-y, la parole est à toi. J'imagine que ce sera plutôt pour Peter, mais vas-y.
Oui, Anna, en fait, c'est des questions pour me rafraîchir un peu la mémoire sur toutes les thématiques. Est-ce que je pourrais comprendre qu'est-ce qui pose problème à la Bulgarie d'une façon assez succincte? Ça, c'est ma première question. Ma deuxième question, puisqu'en fait, plusieurs de mes confrères posent la question sur le découplage Albanie et Macédoine du Nord, est-ce que vous pouvez nous rappeler la règle? Qui doit décider si on découple ou pas? Est-ce qu'il faut l'unanimité au Conseil? C'est ça la grande question. Et une question plus générale, on a un sommet UE-Balkan dans quelques jours. Et en fait, on est dans l'impasse avec Bulgarie, Macédoine du Nord, Albanie, Kosovo et Serbie qui sont tous les deux en tension extrême. Qu'est-ce qu'on va pouvoir dire à tous ces gens-là, à part on veut que vous adhériez, mais il faut faire des réformes, ce qui est un peu le message qu'on leur transmet depuis plusieurs sommets. Donc est-ce qu'on n'a pas un petit peu le sentiment qu'on fait un sommet pour pas grand-chose, ce qui risque d'augmenter la frustration des dirigeants de ces pays? Merci.
Ok, je vais essayer d'aller question par question. Je pense que concernant la Bulgarie, tu pourrais t'adresser plutôt au gouvernement bulgare. Je pense que les choses sont mises sur la table et c'est eux qui les ont mis sur la table. Et pour plus de détails là-dessus, je t'inviterai à parler avec eux. Concernant, désolé, j'ai oublié la
deuxième question, c'est sur la procédure, unanimité ou
sur la procédure. Tu sais très bien que les discussions sur l'élargissement sont toujours à la consensus de base. Et à nouveau, c'est ce qu'on avait expliqué, ça appartient au Conseil de fixer les dates pour initier les négociations. Et tout ça, c'est bien sûr en coopération avec la présidence rotatoire. Et concernant la troisième question, bon, comme tu sais très bien, le sommet est toujours en cours de préparation. Je pense que c'est toujours très important d'avoir les échanges au plus haut niveau politique pour discuter de l'avenir, discuter de tout ce qu'on y va à coopérer avec nos pays partenaires du Balkan. Je pense que la présidente a très clairement dit aussi quels sont les enjeux immédiats tels que avancer bien sûr sur la vaccination et aussi y compris sur le plan de la relance économique. Et c'est pour ça que la présidente a annoncé aussi qu'on allait renforcer le budget pour pouvoir financer les projets dans le contexte du plan économique et d'investissement pour les Balkans occidentaux. Elle a annoncé 60 millions en plus. Donc, je pense que et on compte aussi, comme chaque fois dans le sommet, que aussi le leader réengage aussi son commitment à la perspective européenne de nos pays partenaires dans le Balkan. Et c'est clairement une priorité pour cette commission. Et je pense que la présidente l'a très clairement exprimé dans sa première visite et maintenant en Albanie.
Merci beaucoup, Anna. Christian, tu as une question de suivi?
Bah écoute, oui, parce qu'effectivement, Anna nous a dit que son commissaire était allé en Bulgarie. Et donc, il nous dit on va continuer à travailler. Est-ce qu'effectivement, les entretiens que le commissaire a eus avec les autorités bulgares sur le point Macédoine du Nord et blocage, est-ce que ça a permis d'avancer ou est-ce qu'on est toujours vraiment avec de sérieuses difficultés? Même si effectivement, il faudra que je prenne mon téléphone pour appeler les Bulgares, pour leur demander ce qui bloque, puisque la Commission est incapable de nous le dire.
Sur ces derniers points, Christian, permets-moi de te dire qu'il ne serait pas approprié pour nous d'interpréter les raisons du gouvernement bulgare. Le gouvernement bulgare a exprimé une certaine position par rapport à l'ouverture des négociations avec la Macédoine du Nord. Et pour comprendre les raisons de ces gouvernements, il est effectivement plus approprié de parler directement avec eux que de compter sur nous pour interpréter les raisons d'un gouvernement pour exprimer une certaine position. Ce serait beaucoup mieux pour tout le monde si les informations sont prises directement à la source et nous, on n'est pas au milieu en train d'essayer de faire les intermédiaires. Pour la première question qui concerne la visite du commissaire Várhelyi en Bulgarie, est-ce que tu as d'autres éléments de précision?
Non, comme je viens d'expliquer, les discussions continuent toujours avec tous les côtés et les parties prenantes. C'était la semaine passée, juste pour préciser, mardi passé, que le commissaire était en Sofia. Et mercredi, il va aller en Skopje. Donc, oui, les discussions continuent avec tous les côtés et on continue à travailler là-dessus aussi avec la présidence slovène pour y arriver. Et tu sais très bien qu'on continue à demander aux deux côtés pour qu'ils fassent des efforts pour adresser their bilateral pending issues. Et je pense que la présidente a laissé aussi très clairement, a dit très clairement que ça ne devait pas faire hinder the enlargement process. Donc voilà où on est.
Voilà, merci beaucoup Anna. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions pour Anna à ce sujet? I think that Ekrem has another question on this. Go ahead, Ekrem.
Oui, Anna, pour un peu simplifier le sujet, en fait, surtout concernant l'Albanie. Laissons tomber un peu le pauvre Macédoine. le gouvernement de Macédoine qui attend de miracles que la Commission ou soit un pays membre va faire avec la Bulgarie. Mais c'est quoi l'analyse? Je suppose que doit y avoir des analyses qui se passent à l'intérieur des pays membres. Il y a 3 mois, même l'Allemagne, ils étaient contre découplage. Les élections en Allemagne sont terminées, il y aura bientôt un nouveau gouvernement, mais là, cette question se pose toujours. Est-ce que l'Albanie doit espérer ou attendre les élections d'avril en France qu'on puisse avoir une situation claire? Parce que si on continue, il y a élections dans tel ou tel pays, il y aura toujours des élections dans les 27 pays membres. Donc, à quoi on joue ici? Est-ce que la Commission est vraiment, va être poussée après les élections en France à dire, ben, écoutez, ça suffit, qu'est-ce qu'on fait? On bouge ou on ne bouge pas? On ne peut pas jouer, à mon avis, un jeu, non, c'est pas ma faute, c'est la faute à l'autre. Quand on pose la question à l'autre, non, mais ils ne sont pas prêts, c'est un bordel total à la fin. Et donc, je viens des régions, je devais comprendre que ma frustration, ça représente des frustrations aussi dans la région, tout le monde. Et aussi, je ne sais pas si vous avez vu plusieurs fois le président de Macédoine, M. Penderovski, y compris le Premier ministre, ils ont dit clair, pour nous, il n'y a pas de problème, on veut que l'Albanie ne nous attend pas et qu'elle puisse débaucher avec ces négociations. Donc le pays est toujours ici, à Bruxelles et dans les capitales, pas là-bas.
Merci beaucoup pour avoir relancé. Enfin, c'est pas autant une question, plus un débat que tu lances, Ekrem. Et permets-moi de revenir à ce qu'on a dit plusieurs fois lors de cette session. Ce qui est que la présidente a dit lors de sa conférence de presse à Tirana, et nous réaffirmons cela, que notre objectif reste l'ouverture de la conférence intergouvernementale et des négociations donc avec les 2 pays, avec l'Albanie et avec la Macédoine du Nord. Tu as mentionné les difficultés qui sont rencontrées dans ces processus. On en a parlé avec Christian aussi et avec les autres collègues. Oui, on est au courant des difficultés. Tout le monde est au courant des difficultés. Anna t'a expliqué comment on essaie de les résoudre en contact avec toutes les parties prenantes. Nous sommes à l'œuvre pour essayer de résoudre. Nous sommes de l'avis très fort que notre forte conviction est que ces problèmes ne devraient pas prolonger ou retarder encore plus le début de la conférence intergouvernementale, et nous allons mettre toutes nos forces à l'œuvre pour avoir le lancement de cette conférence avant la fin de l'année avec les 2 pays. Je ne pense pas qu'on puisse aller plus loin aujourd'hui. Tes commentaires concernant des cycles électoraux, c'est tes commentaires. Notre position, elle est très claire, que nous allons tout faire pour pouvoir pour pouvoir avoir le lancement des négociations, enfin l'ouverture de la conférence intergouvernementale avant la fin de l'année. Voilà. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions pour Anna? Oui. Ekrem, tu veux relancer une dernière fois?
Une dernière remarque, pour mettre le contexte de mes commentaires, c'est comme ça. On nous a toujours dit, depuis 25 ans, que chaque pays mérite son propre évaluation et chaque pays bouge vers l'Union européenne avec ses propres mérites. L'Albanie est là. Je suis désolé de le faire, mais je répète les phrases qu'on entend depuis 25 ans de Bruxelles et tous les pays membres. Rien d'autre, ni moins de plus.
Mais effectivement, notre position à nous était que l'Albanie ainsi que la Macédoine du Nord, les 2 avaient rempli les conditions pour que la conférence intergouvernementale soit ouverte, et nous œuvrons de toutes nos forces pour le lancement de la conférence intergouvernementale pour ces 2 pays. Mais voilà, les mérites de chaque pays évidemment comptent, et la manière dont chaque pays délivre sur ces recommandations sont extrêmement importantes, comme tu viens de dire. Merci beaucoup. Y a-t-il d'autres questions pour Anna? Stéphane, je vois que tu as la main levée. Est-ce que c'est une question pour Anna? Si oui, vas-y.
Oui, c'est sur le même sujet. Tu m'entends bien?
on t'entend.
Oui, mais j'ai l'impression que vous êtes devenu complètement suisse, cette neutralité. Je veux dire, tout le monde sait que la position bulgare sur la Macédoine est assez absurde. Bon, ce ne serait pas le moment de le dire une fois pour tout, pour que ce soit clair. Parce qu'on a tous les antécédents avec la Grèce. Maintenant, c'est la Bulgarie qui bloque. Ce serait peut-être le moment de le dire clairement. Merci.
Je pense que nous avons clairement dit que nous œuvrons avec tous les stakeholders, avec toutes les parties prenantes. Évidemment, la Bulgarie, c'est connu, c'est une situation qui a été discutée pendant longtemps et fait partie du débat pour l'ouverture de la conférence intergouvernementale. Nous travaillons avec toutes les parties et nous espérons que nous allons avoir une conclusion positive bientôt pour pouvoir lancer les conférences intergouvernementales le prochain mois. Voilà, merci beaucoup. Je pense que cela conclut la suite des questions pour Anna. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions sur d'autres sujets aujourd'hui? So please raise your hand if you have another question. Yes, I think that David has waited very patiently for a long time to ask his question. Vas-y, David. Vas-y, David.
Oui, merci. J'espère que tu m'entends. Dana, c'était en fait une follow-up à la première question qui a été posée sur les règles internes en cas d'intervention dans des campagnes électorales, etc. En fait, hier, tu as dit que la Commission ne commande jamais, sauf quand il y a un gouvernement. J'ai assez de mémoire pour me rappeler au moins 2 cas où cela s'est passé différemment. Le premier cas, c'est l'Italie en 2018 et même avant, en 2013, quand on a demandé à l'Italie de faire vite et d'avoir un gouvernement stable, en 2013 pro-européen, etc. Donc déjà, ça, c'est une exception. Deuxième exception, en 2018, quand il y a eu l'accord de coalition entre la CDU-CSU et la SPD en Allemagne, accord qui était encore un draft, un projet d'accord, pas voté par les congrès de 2 partis, la commission Juncker de l'époque avait commenté cet accord. Il avait même fait une conférence de presse pour souligner combien de points pro-européens étaient dedans et saluer donc cette avancée majeure pour l'Europe. Il n'y avait pas de gouvernement, en fait. Donc voilà, je me demande où est la cohérence de tout ça. Et surtout, je te demande, vu qu'il y a des échéances importantes dans les prochains 3 mois, des décisions qu'avec l'Allemagne, sans l'Allemagne, c'est difficile à prendre. Je ne vais pas faire la liste. Est-ce que vous demandez à l'Allemagne ou aux partis politiques allemands d'aller vite?
Merci beaucoup pour les questions, David. D'abord, je suis très impressionnée par ta mémoire politique. Que tu mentionnes, que tu cites des situations qui ont eu lieu en 2013 et 2 fois en 2018, si j'ai bien compris. Évidemment, ça se réfère à des législatures ou à des équipes de la Commission qui nous précèdent et je ne parle pas dans leur nom et ce ne sera pas approprié de commenter ce qu'on a dit à l'époque et les dites du président que tu es en train de citer. Donc, je ne veux pas faire un commentaire de ce que, historiquement, la Commission a pu dire à des diverses occasions suite aux élections dans les pays membres. Ce que je veux te dire est que nous ne commentons pas avant qu'on ait un gouvernement qui soit sur le point ou en mesure ou qui est sworn in, comme on dit en anglais, et qui serait donc notre partenaire dans l'Union européenne. Et nous allons nous tenir à cela sans faire des commentaires sur les résultats d'un processus électoral dans un pays membre, comme partout. Il peut y avoir des négociations entre des partis qui ont participé aux élections et nous n'avons pas de commentaires à faire sur ce que se passe lors de ces discussions. Et je vais en rester ici. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions à ce sujet? Je vois la main de Christian levée. Vas-y, Christian. Christian, est-ce que tu es toujours connecté? On essaie de te récupérer.
Oui, mais ma question, c'est sur le dialogue, les pourparlers Serbie-Kosovo. Donc, c'est pas la question de David. Je suis pas dedans, là.
Problème, Christian, parce qu'il n'y a pas d'autres questions de suivi au sujet qui était lancé par David. Donc, je t'invite de poser ta question.
Merci, elle est très simple. Est-ce que vous pouvez confirmer que demain, les négociateurs de la Serbie et du Kosovo seront à Bruxelles pour reprendre les pourparlers? Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Christian. Si la question est tout aussi simple que ça, je peux te répondre simplement aussi que oui, les négociateurs de deux parties seront présents à Bruxelles demain. Si tu as besoin d'autres précisions, je vais appeler Peter Sussen, mais si c'était la seule question qui t'intéressait, voilà, on peut en rester ici. Cela a donné des idées à Ekrem qui a levé sa main. Ekrem, vas-y.
J'ai plusieurs coupures, la cinquième, je ne sais pas pourquoi, donc je n'ai pas suivi les dernières 10 secondes. Est-ce que Peter est là ou pas?
Ekrem, oui, Peter, il est présent dans la salle, donc si tu as une question qui serait pertinente pour lui, ça me ferait plaisir de l'appeler sur scène.
Peter, I hope you'll save my day. It's about tomorrow's talks. Going back to the position or request made by both EU, US, and also K4 about the first steps that you expect both sides to make on diffusing the tension. That's moving, removing the roadblocks and moving back to the special police forces. My question is, how does, what's the position of Mr. Lajčák and Mr. Boller as well about the temporary plates imposed by both sides on the other side? How do you think that issue should be taken, and should they be kept by both sides, or should they be removed by both sides? I'm trying to look beyond the escalation, which is in fact triggered the whole thing.
Thank you, Ekrem. Peter.
Thank you. Indeed, the de-escalation is the main priority right now, and the second priority immediately after that is to return to the situation where all open issues are being dealt with within the framework of the dialogue, because this is the reason why dialogue was established in the first place, to have a platform to solve all the open issues, all the grievances, all the problems between the two parties in the framework of the EU facilitated dialogue, in order to avoid unilateral steps, unilateral decisions, and provocations that lead to the increasing of tensions as we see them now for the second week running. So the position of not only of the EUSR Lajčák or HRVP Borrell, but of the whole EU is that both sides, in order to achieve the normalization of their relations, should address all the open issues and all the issues between them within the framework of the dialogue, which was established in order to help them to arrive finally to a comprehensive, legally binding agreement on the normalization of the relations, so that similar situations are avoided in the future.
Thank you very much, Peter. Are there any additional questions for Peter on this subject? Not the case. On other subjects? Also not the case, so thank you so much, Peter. Are there any other questions for us today on any other matter? I do not see, so thank you so much. See you tomorrow, and now stay tuned for the technical briefing on Horizon missions. Thank you so much.